Okay, hi everyone. We may have a few more people joining as we get started, but I want to get started so we have plenty of time. Welcome to World Kitchen. It's great to see you all for this May edition of our cooking workshop. This month we have a guest chef, and the World Kitchen has moved to her house for the day. So we are very happy to have Pallavi Eswara here with us. And I will go ahead and let Pallavi take it away.
Thank you, Tamra. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Pallavi Eswara. I've been living in State College for a little over 20 years now. So it's been a long time living in central Pennsylvania. So when Tamra and I connected to host World Kitchen, I was very excited. It gave me a rare opportunity to share what I make regularly in my home with everybody out there. And technology kind of made it all possible that I didn't have to even move out of my house. So it's right here in my kitchen in State College. So when Tamra and I connected, we knew that this would be coinciding with the Asian American Pacific Islander American Heritage Month, and we were very pleased about that. We saw this as an opportunity to sort of share recipes, a whole bunch of recipes, five of them today, from North Indian cuisine. But we did not know that it would be coinciding with a very deadly pandemic that is going on in India. So as we share these recipes, as we enjoy the food later, if any of you are cooking, I just want you to keep India and Indians in your mind, and we send them strength from here, and hope that they can turn it around and they kind of come out of this pandemic. So with that, I'll talk a little bit more about my journey in cooking, so to say, and what I'm going to be cooking today specifically. So growing up in India, I grew up in the southern city of Hyderabad, and so growing up, I was actually not very interested in cooking. I didn't really care what my mom was giving me for food. That was not of interest to me. What interested me most was the pictures in magazines that I could kind of cut out and save and say, oh, I'm going to bake this later. I'm going to make this multi-tier cake, put cherries on top, and I would try various versions with whatever I had around me to not a great result, but my parents and family members were generous in praise, and that kind of got me feeling like, oh, I can cook, I can do things. But as I left home, I started eating foods from different parts of the country. So my home, my parents are from the state of Andhra, but I grew up in a state, Telangana. They have the same language, but slightly different cuisines. So my parents themselves did not have similar cuisine growing up. And when they came and they started their family in Hyderabad, you could imagine that it was a mishmash of already two regional cuisines. So pretty much I grew up eating one kind of food, and eating anything different from what my mom made meant taking a special trip to a restaurant and ordering food off the menu, especially North Indian food. And then as I met my friends, and then I later met my husband who grew up only in North India entire life of his. So he wanted North Indian food. So that's how I started cooking more and more of it and sort of made it a part of my dinner table, my lunch day. If you come home for brunch, I don't see a distinction between foods that I grew up and the foods from North India. They're all there. If I can make it, it's on my table. But what actually Indian cuisine is, it's very representative of its geography, of its own culture in each state. So if you meet any Indian person from in State College or in Central Pennsylvania, you can know that they may not be having the same kind of food at home. They all represent their own states, their own cuisines, and each state in India, depending upon its location on the map, and its political influences. So, what were the kings like? For example, Hyderabad had kings who were big time food aficionados. I mean, they would have people, their chefs try different recipes. And that's how the cuisine became very rich, very spice rich, and nut rich in Hyderabad. So each region has its own influence. And going on from that, so that's how I got into cooking North Indian food, and I got interested in finding foods from different parts of the country and sort of added it to all my list of dishes that I can make. So today we're going to start with some staples of Indian food, and that is one is spinach dal. We're going to start with that, and for that, and then we're going to start making rice, And as those two are cooking, because that takes the longest, lentils and rice take the longest to cook, then we will start layering other dishes. We'll start making other dishes. So can I just say with a show of hands, how many of you are cooking with me? Okay. How many is that, Tamra? Oh, you're muted.
Most people seem to have their cameras off, but I see at least 2 who are.
Okay,
So
good.
there may be others who
So-
have their cameras off.
Okay, good.
There's also a lot of thumbs up.
Bear with me here if I'm going a little too fast or a little too slow for those of you who are cooking along with me, and feel free to ask a question. So that would help me kind of pause, think, and add comments. So we're going to start off with spinach dal. Here for that, okay, you'll see red lentils. So lentils are very, very common in India. They're the staple of Indian cuisine. And actually, they were even found in the archaeological evidence from the Indus Valley civilization, which is about 5,000 years old or more. So Indians have been eating lentils, various kinds of lentils in various dishes for a long, long time. So this is one kind of lentil. It's red lentils. It cooks very easy, or it cooks very fast compared to all the other lentils. So that's perhaps one of the reasons I chose to cook with this specific one today. So we're going to start with that. And then we're going to use spinach. Here, I have some finely chopped spinach, as you can see here. But I'm also going to chop a few leaves just to show how I have done. Okay. So all I did is, these are baby spinach leaves that I got from the market. So once the farmer's market starts and you can start seeing fresh spinach, you can grab some there too. But I got this from the box from a regular grocery store. And then here, I'm just going to go and just bunch them together, and I'm going to make them into thin strips. I just want to go one way half so that they're smaller. This way they will cook very easy. And if you're using frozen spinach, that's fine too. You just want to reduce the quantity. I'm going for 2 cups of freshly chopped spinach, but you can go for maybe 1.5 cups of frozen spinach, because frozen spinach is packed densely. So we have our spinach, we have our lentils. So we're going to take a few of these things to the stove. And we're also going to show, I got in with onion and tomatoes that are going to go. And here is some ginger that I'm going to use. So I have some ginger, and I'm going to introduce you to my best friend in the kitchen, this mortar and pestle. So here I'm just going to quickly grind up. So you want a paste, and sometimes you can get a paste by either crushing or, with a knife, you can cut it finely. I think this ginger is a little fibrous. So I may have to do it here on the side. You can still see. So I'm aiming for about 1 tablespoon of ginger. The Indian cooking, especially lentils and vegetables, or even meats, ginger is a very important ingredient. It's always there. Ginger, onion, garlic. Here, I think this should amount to 1 tablespoon. So in the recipe, I've mentioned about green chilies. So this is optional. So if you can take some heat, you can get some green chilies from the market, and the various kinds. This is the one that I get from the Indian grocery stores, and these are slender, thin. They're small, and they can be longer than this, but this is the average size. They're quite potent, and they have seeds at the end of it. So not all green chilies are the same. So you have your jalapenos, poblanos. They're all different kinds of peppers. So the one that we use most often in Indian cooking, usually they're green, this kind of raw green, and slender and thin. So I'm just going to make a few small slices that I'm going to use as we go forward. And you can skip this step if you're not used to the heat of green chilies, so or if you want to take it mild. Yeah. Okay. It is that. And so And you have the onion, you have all of this. So let me carry them to the stove. And we'll get started with our lentils. Oh, I remember now what I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about this very special box many of us have in our kitchens. And here is mine. It's called the spice box. So, my discovery of Indian food started when I came to United States. That's when I realized, oh, I miss food that my mother made. I somehow have to teach myself how to cook. And since then, I have been making Indian food. So the first trip I made back to India, I got myself this box. And this is the same, similar to what my mother had. And many people have it. But what it looks similar to all of us. It could be made from stainless steel, like the one here, or it could be from wood or plastic or even brass. But once you go inside this box, what is in can be different for different people. So here is the first, right under the lid. I keep dry red chilies, and then I keep some bay leaf. Sometimes I stick in a measuring spoon too. And inside are all the spices that I use most often. So here is turmeric and mustard seeds. These are the small black seeds. And this is pepper kernels, whole pepper kernels, cumin seeds. And this little thing I made with foil, improvised for myself, where I have 4 different kinds of spices. I have cardamom, I have whole cloves, I have some fennel seeds, I have some cinnamon sticks. And these 2 lentils, this is the yellow lentil and this is a white lentil. These are very commonly used in South Indian cuisine. And so today we won't be using them, but this is how my spice box looks. This is what I have. And I'll keep going back into this spice box as and when we need different spices. So I just thought I'll introduce this friend of mine to all of you. And I'm going to take this also with me because we need it. And then in one trip, we can make it. Okay. So as we get started, here is a pan, and I'm going to start cooking the lentils first. So pouring all of them, and then adding 3 cups of water. This is 2 cups right here. And then I have a mason jar that has 1.5 cups of water. So I'm just going to leave a little bit at the end and make sure. So this doesn't have to be accurate. It's just that if you have too much, it's going to spill over once you start cooking. And so I'm going to do this, add some salt so that it can cook faster. Okay. And then a tiny bit of turmeric, pinch. Oh, let me grab a spoon from here. Okay. So now the lentils take quite a bit of time to cook, so we want to get started with that, and that's what we're doing. Okay. So this is for the lentils. So let me stir. I'm cooking it on medium heat, so it can get. And then once I'm able to pay more attention to it, I'll increase the heat on that. So now let's get started with cooking the spinach for it.
There's a question in the chat. Are the mustard seeds in the spice box toasted? And can they get a list of the spices later?
Oh, so if you can hear me, the mustard seeds that are in the spice box, they're not toasted, they are raw. So I pour them into the spice box after I bring the bag of mustard seeds from the store. And then whatever is extra, whatever is remaining in the bag, I then put them in glass jars and save it for later. So none of these have been processed in any form beyond whatever was done at the manufacturing facility. And usually nothing much is done. They're just sun-dried and, just, maybe prepared for export if it's because they're coming from India. So they're not being fried or roasted or toasted. And how many lentils? How much lentils? So the lentils I used was 1 cup. It was 1 cup of lentils that went into the water with the water. Okay, so now let's get started with the spinach. So for that, we're going to start with oil. I love to repurpose glass bottles. So I like, this was originally for maple syrup, and now it's holding my oil. And so I'm going to use 1 tablespoon. This is a half tablespoon, so 2 times of that. And then I'm going to use the ginger that I crushed over there.
For those of you asking about amounts, the recipes were available on the website. If you haven't downloaded those or you haven't seen them, you can go right back to wpsu.org/world kitchen and find the recipes there.
Okay, so we have the ginger, and then we wanted cumin seeds, which would be so 3 teaspoons or 1 tablespoon. 2, 3. So let's use a different spoon. Get started with that. So once you start sauteing these cumin seeds in this oil and ginger, you want to start watching carefully. You don't want any of it to burn. You want it. I don't know if you can see on your screens, but you just want it to be like a golden brown. Like it has. You'll smell the aroma if you can. And you'll see. I'll stop the gas. I'll stop the stove cooking process at that time, and kind of focus on it for a minute. So we will add the onions just a minute into this, so they all cook together. Right. Okay. So let's start the next step of adding the green chilies and the onion. So this is about 1/4 cup of onion, so not many. And now we're just going to allow all of this to cook. So the goal is to make the onions, golden brown and almost shrivel up. So I'm going to increase the fire so it gets done sooner.
Pallavi, these recipes, how many people do you think they serve?
1 cup of raw lentils can give you at least 4 cups of cooked dal. So yeah, it also one can adjust the thickness and the soupiness of the dal. So if you like it thick with rice, you can make it, you can reduce the water finally when it's all done. But if you want to eat it like a soup, you can just increase the water. So you can play around with the measurement. So So now I hope you can hear the sizzle of the onions. So they're getting done slowly. So the secret is to get them fully done. So anything that is remaining as raw doesn't taste good in Indian dishes. So it doesn't hold well. It won't last also. So you want to make sure that it's fully cooked. So the process has just begun. I'll get ready for the next step. So now is the time to watch the onions carefully. So here we go. So the order of adding things comes, we start with onions, then we add, as the onions are getting done, as we add the tomatoes, and then we let onions and tomatoes cook together. And then once the tomatoes are done, we will add the spinach because it doesn't take long for the spinach to cook up. So anytime I cook like a lentil dal here, so my family is, I have two daughters, and that's what they've eaten. So lentil dal is something that you grow up eating. If you're from the Indian subcontinent and if you're Indian diaspora, this is what your mom makes for lunch and dinner.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why they're so brown.
Yeah, I think now we're getting ready to add the tomato. So to cook it together. So today I'm showing this recipe with spinach and tomato and onion, but you can kind of, grow from here. Once you do it a couple of times and you feel, oh, this is comfortable, you can add zucchini instead of tomato and spinach, completely, and remove the onion also. So now we're going to let it all cook together. I don't want to add the salt yet because we're going to add spinach and then add salt, but I'm going to increase the fire so that it cooks a little quicker. So I also, somebody was asking about the spices and how they're stored. So I just wanted to mention, as this is cooking, I can talk about that. So this stays on at the shelf, it has a shelf life of very long time, but I use them pretty frequently. So, it doesn't take me long to get through this much of spice. But if you think, oh, I'm not going to be cooking as frequently, you can buy the whole spices or even a spice powder mix and transfer it into any kind of a container and save it in the refrigerator or even freezer if you think you're not going to use it a long time. But it holds very well. It's, you can store it very well in the fridge. So let's keep an eye on our lentils that are boiling here. So as you can see, they're cooking. And at this point, it starts making this foamy like thing on top. This is called saponin. So lentils have this in them. They're not harmful. Some people like to skim it off, some leave it. I don't mind leaving it in. It doesn't affect the taste in any way or even the texture. So I just let it be. But the thing is, if you're cooking and you let it spill over, then I don't know if you can see it fully. So this has been about 10 minutes of cooking, and they're just about getting started to cook. So we're going to leave them and let it rest here. So when you're cooking with onions and you're cooking with this tomato mixture, just make sure that it is not sticking to the bottom of the pan. It can do that very easily, and then everything collects over there. So you want to keep stirring it as you go. Okay. So you can see that the onion, let me see if I can pull out. Yeah, I don't know if you can see. The onion is getting translucent, it's getting kind of brown, and the tomato is becoming very soft. Usually the tomato gets very soft, but what remains, near the stalk, that part of this tomato is very hard. So compared to the rest of it, so you may still find a few pieces, and that's fine. It doesn't have to become completely mush. It can have its texture. But we want to make sure that the onion is completely brown and well cooked. So here we are. I'm going to reach for the spinach and add spinach to this. Oh, I wanted to add some coriander powder. So let me chop this slow. So at this point, we can add the coriander powder, stir it in, mix it up with the spinach. So coriander powder is also very essential to North Indian cuisine. So you will not find a recipe easily that doesn't have coriander powder. So here you go. I've mixed them all in. I'm going to add some more salt so it can cook. Just a little bit. Because remember, we have salt in there. And then finally, once it's all mixed and done, you can check. So as this is getting cooked here, let's get started with the rice. Okay, I think I'm going to start it here. Can you get it here? So for the rice, we're going to start with sauteing onions till they're golden brown. So here, this is the onion that we're going to use for the rice. Yeah, you can see it. Good. So these are 3 sliced onions that you're going to use. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to saute them with cumin seeds and some, did I say baby? And a teaspoon of cumin seeds. So as you can see, cumin is essential to Indian cooking. There's nothing that happens without cumin. So here are the onions that are sliced and cumin. And I'm going to get started with that. Hopefully this will start for me. An interesting competition. So this is what you see. Okay, I'm going to let it become golden brown. And let me look at what's happening with the spinach mixture. So it's getting cooked. You can see the spinach is all shriveling, which is good. You want to make sure again that you keep stirring and nothing is sticking to the pan.
Pallavi, are you mostly using red onion?
I'm using red onion, but you can use any onion, frankly. I think I wrote white onion for the rice, but you can use white onion or yellow onion or even red onion. So I think what happens is different onions have different levels of sweetness and they have different cooking time. So red takes longest time actually. So white onion cooks faster. So that's why I had written white onion. So feel free to substitute with whatever you find in the market.
Okay, and we know that we can generally get these spices at most of the local supermarkets, but do you find that you can get them in better quantity or cheaper at the international markets?
Yes. So it's easier to find if you go to a specific Indian grocery store. It's much easier to find, of course. Actually, I can come to the camera and talk about that, what you asked me. Give me a minute. So where do you find spices? So where do you find county? So that is a very interesting question. For me, when I first came 20 years back, that was a challenge. It would mean a trip to DC or Pittsburgh, finding the Indian grocery store there and buying all the ingredients. But now we're lucky enough that we can get everything close by. So if you're living in State College, you can find spices in the international market, in the Indian grocery store. Both of these are downtown. Or you can get them, even some of them like turmeric, cumin seeds, coriander powder, you can even find in Trader Joe's, bay leaf. So you find majority of them, or even Wegmans. Now Wegmans also has a wide array of spices, so you can find them everywhere. So there was a time when if I ran out of something, it meant I wouldn't make that dish that day. And now I can run down to Wegmans and go get some spices.
Great.
So the lentils are kind of done now. You can see they got cooked pretty easy. I switched off the stove. I'm switching off even the spinach mixture. I don't want it to burn. And anyway, I'm going to let them all cook once together. So I'm going to move things around. Okay. And let the onions cook easy for the rice. Okay, here is the mixture for the spinach dal. As I was saying, this is with spinach, but feel free to use zucchini once it's in season. You can use zucchini instead of spinach and tomato, or you can use zucchini and tomato. So all of that makes a very good dal. None of these spices can be fried. Fried when you buy them, or fried when you were using them? You mean? So there was a question. Can you elaborate on the question? Maybe you can unmute and ask if that's possible.
Giselda, do you want to just ask the question?
Hi. Yeah, I'm wondering if powdered spices can be fried, or they will have a bitter taste if they are fried.
When you mean, so if you don't, if you're asking if you can fry that, I switched off so I can hear your question. So if you mean this is like a shallow frying, what I'm doing here, I just put it in oil and they are frying. Usually all of them are used in this format, in the sense that they're fried. There is a step that I'm going to be showing you, which is like making a seasoning, or tadka as we call, where you actually fry the spice. So this is a shallow frying. That step which you'll see shortly is the actual frying of the spice. Is that powder? Oh, if it's powder. So if you use powders, then you have to, it can't fry for so long because it's going to burn. So for example, if you saw how I used the coriander powder, most of the cooking was done. So that's when I introduced the coriander powder into the oil. So the cumin seeds went first because they're whole seeds. They can take the oil and the heat, and they take longest to cook. Whereas in powder form, it will take very short time to cook. So if you're using powders, you want to add them, and kind of watch them, just give them a minute, not longer, because they will easily, become golden brown and give out an aroma. You're done. So cooking with powders is easier and faster. Some things can be done that way, but some taste good. Using cumin seeds is like a slow release flavor. So it will keep cooking. Every time you reheat the dish, it will give out its aroma, it will give out its oils, and it will taste very good. So I'm going to continue cooking here. Sorry, if I'm cooking, I can't hear the questions with the noise of the stove, so I had to stop. And here is the dal. So you can see it's all coming together, and it's pretty thick. So you can get, there was a question around quantity. So you can see the consistency of the dal. If this is what you like, and if you're eating it with rice, you can leave it at this, and you can easily get 4 cups out of this. But if you want to thin it out and eat it like a soup, then you can add some more water at the end and give it a good boil, and then eat it that way. So it depends on how you want to consume it. So I'm now going to show you a step which is called the seasoning, and it's called the tadka. So there's an Indian word for it in every language. So for example, in my language, it's not called tadka, but tadka is called in Hindi, which is spoken in majority of the North Indian states. So let me take a quick look at this onion. Okay, I can leave it alone for a minute more as I get ready with the tadka. So for that, you take you take a pan with a good handle, and then you add a little bit of oil. I think I gave the quantity in the recipe, so just stick to that quantity and heat it. And this is like a controlled experiment, so to say. You're heating it, it's going to heat up in a minute. And this is like a, you can count 50 if you're not sure of how long. So meanwhile, I'll stir my onions here so they don't burn. Okay. So now I'm going to add a little bit of cumin seeds. Remember, we added quite a bit of cumin when we were preparing the spinach mixture. So I'm just not going to go a lot. I'm going to have a few cumin seeds. I hope you can see that. And then I'm going to add some mustard seeds. Here, this is the mustard seeds. Okay. And the mustard seeds have to splutter. Okay. So we're going to leave it for a minute. And we need the So this is the top lid of my spice rack where I have these whole red chilies. And as I said, it's optional. Let me show that. Let me put it in front of the camera. So these red chilies, you find them in Indian stores. I would not substitute with the ready cayenne pepper or any of the chili flakes you have, because that can make the dish very intense and spicy. So I use in a very small quantity. I use the front part of the chili pepper, which doesn't have seeds. I'll show it to you. So I break it. I empty out the seeds. The seeds are where all the heat is. So I just take the front part of it and use that, because the base of the pepper has all the seeds and they're still preserved in this dry form. So you can hear the mustard seeds fluttering. And then I'm going to add see, I made two. I split the chili pepper into two, and I'm going to switch it off. And I have the flakes of garlic. So this step of adding garlic to lentils is very much something I learned from my friends and from my husband. You don't want things to burn up. You just want to keep it, away from fire if you think the heat is increasing. So I hope you can see it well. And I'm just going to let the garlic become a little bit brown.
So when you say flakes of garlic, you actually took the garlic clove and just sliced it very thinly?
Yes, I did that. The reason is there is an ingredient which is very essential to Indian cooking, but it is not found readily if you don't go to the Indian stores, and that is called Asafoetida. It's a resin of a plant, or actually of a tree, and it's collected, harvested, and mixed up with like a wheat flour, all-purpose flour, and sold in boxes. It has an intense pungent smell, and that is also used instead of garlic. So it's an option. You don't have to use both garlic and asafoetida. So I use either of them. I use asafoetida commonly, but I just thought for the purposes of the show, I could show that one could use garlic also. So it's cooking. As you can see, the garlic has turned golden brown. I'm going to give it one more minute. Okay, and my onions have sweated out. I'm going to leave them. I'm going to switch off. I don't want to get distracted and burn it. So this is getting done here. Okay, so this point you can add the oil mixture. It needs to be well done. You don't want to have raw garlic because that's going to spoil your dish. So I'm going to show the garlic how it is done. Higher? Good. Yeah. So as you can see, it's kind of golden brown. It's covered in cumin seeds. And so this one is also done, but it's lighter in color, but it's also done. So I want to make sure that they're fully cooked in this form. And I'm going to transfer them to the lentil mix. So there you go. So your spinach dal is ready. One dish is done. So dal was a constant and is a constant fixture in Indian homes. So, you know, when babies are about a year old or even lesser than that, you know, we introduce lentils to the children, to the infants, and they start eating it with rice. That's how it starts. And it's cooked in various forms. Some people make with this red lentils, some make it with the yellow ones. Some make, there are some special dals which are made with a mixture of lentils. Those taste very good too. So for all purposes, our spinach dal is done and it looks like this. You can give it a boil. So I'm just going to give it like a minute. You can cook it just for a minute longer. And meanwhile, let's take a look at these onions. So you can see the onions have completely shriveled up. You know, they're just all, you know, golden brown. You can cook them for a little longer. You just want them almost all browned up. And then we can start cooking the rice. And as the rice is cooking, we will prepare for the egg curry. That's the grand plan of things. Okay, so the lentil soup dal is getting to boil. We switch it off. It's done. And then we'll move it away. It's there. So jeera, you know, Indians love their rice. There are many, many rice dishes from India. Jeera rice is one of them. It's something that is made to accompany the lentils and the curries that are done. So this is something I cook quite often. And there are other forms of rice too. Perhaps you've eaten when you've gone to any Indian restaurant or you were invited by a friend. So what I'm doing is I'm going to scoop out as many of the onions as I can into this bowl. And I'm going to try leaving the cumin inside. So I'm going to save these onions for later. So let's go back to the other camera. So over here. So what I want to show you here is basmati rice that has been soaking. I added the water to the rice at 145. So it's been about 40 minutes, you know, a little over, yeah, 245. So it's like an hour now. So it's been soaking here in water. Basmati rice, as you see, it's a long grained rice. So it has a nice aroma, but India has several hundreds of kinds of rice. So this is just one of them that's become very popular all over the world. You know, interesting story. I didn't grow up eating this. You know, in the South, there are different kinds of rice for each state. So this was a treat that you ate once in a while when you went to a restaurant or something. The reason I left it in water for this long is that it's easier to cook. It takes shorter time, of course, and also you get individual grains being cooked. If you do it without soaking, it will still cook. There's nothing wrong or less in it, but it will be together. The starch is still there, so the starch still holds the whole thing together. But if you kind of use soaked rice, you'll be able to cook it almost like individual grains, and the rice is separated from each other. So let's take it to the stove. And here is the rice. I'm going to find a slotted spoon. Yeah. So I'm going to transfer the rice here. And because I didn't measure the amount of water originally when I was soaking it, I left it, you know, I'm not going to transfer the water. I'm going to save the water. And also that way I'm not adding all the starch back. So this was 1 cup of rice. And I'm going to kind of just fry it gently for a short time. Yeah. Taking all the rice. start the cooking process. Okay. Let me transfer the water off to make it easy and faster. Okay, got most of it. All right. So I want to add a bay leaf. Here you have the cumin seeds that are already there, and we're just going to let it cook like this without the water for maybe a minute, nothing more than that. And that minute, we're going to use our time to talk about egg curry. So for the egg curry, oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, we're good now. All right. So the rice, as you just saw, the rice is on the stove and it's going through like a little browning, golden brown process. So there is a nice aroma. And I'm going to add about 2 cups of water to that and then start cooking. So until I can see it from here, so I know what's going on. I'm going to talk about the egg curry now. So for that, there is a little bit of a story. So each of these recipes that I chose for you today has a little bit of a story and relevance in my life. So for example, the dal, it's like represents mother to me. So that's what, that's the first food we eat as babies along with rice. So my mother was a big, all into making sure that we got protein. So lentil soup, dal was always on the table. There was no escaping. So I had to show that. And then, as I said, that my cooking it's kind of started in the United States, not in India. And one of the first recipes that I learned was from my husband, and that was egg curry. So that was the only curry he knew, making it as he was living in dorms and he was living by himself for majority of the time. So he could make egg curry, and he showed it to me, and that was one of the first few things that I learned to cook and also to eat after coming to US. So I thought of sharing that with you. So for that, we have a whole bunch of ingredients. Here, I think you can see the tomatoes. Here are the tomatoes and the onions. So this is 2 cups. This is 2 cups of chopped tomatoes. You can see the size. They're not, they're not big and chunky. They're kind of small pieces. Even though we're going to, kind of cook them completely, we want to make sure that they're small pieces so that they cook uniformly. Oops, this is chopped onion, 2 cups of chopped onion. And then I have some ginger somewhere. Oh yeah, here, I'm going to cut up some ginger, and then there's garlic. So we need about a tablespoon or each of ginger and garlic. And then we have some spices, which is the coriander powder. And then the garam masala. Oh, so this is the garam masala. This is the coriander powder. So we're going to take all of this over there. And these are 4 hard-boiled eggs, as you can see. So I'm going to use these eggs. They're already being boiled, and they're not soft boiled. So the yellow inside is fully done, and I'm going to use that and prepare. And the rest of the spices, you saw that in my spice box over there. So I'm going to move just as I get done with the rice. And I'm going to get some fresh water. So this is 1.5 cups in mason jar. So I just want to tell you, I'm usually not this organized with my water, but because I just wanted to not, kind of move around too much in my kitchen, I had, my daughter who's helping me here today, she measured all the water into mason jars for convenience. So this is 1.5, and I'm going to add 2 cups. This is half, this is 2. And then I'm going to add another 1/2 cup, like 2.5 cups of water. You can see they cook pretty easy and well. I'll add a little bit of salt to it. Okay. And then start the stove. Okay, good. So every now and then you may hear a cough. It's because the spices are all there. Usually I switch on the exhaust, and but the exhaust would be very noisy. So if you're cooking if you're cooking today with me, or if you cook later, you can switch on the exhaust and make sure that all the heat of the spices all are not affecting you. The other thing I wanted to say is sometimes Indian cooking is so aromatic. All the spices we use, they're great to taste, they're healthy for you, but they can also leave a lingering smell. So if you want to get rid of that, my trick has been that as I'm cooking, I get ready with a pot of water, and then I just boil the water and leave it. And I just, once water is boiled, I'll take some used lemons and then just drop it into them. So they're half used lemons that I just drop into the pot of water, and then switch on the exhaust. That sort of cleans up and airs up the room. Okay.
Okay, Pallavi, there's a couple of questions in the chat about the water that you added to the rice. Was that 2.5 cups of water?
Yes, yes. Finally, it all added up to 2.5 cups of water.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm leaving the pan open, but because I'm going to be talking about the egg curry. If I close the pan, it will cook faster, but it can also kind of, make the water spill. So just so that I don't have any spills now, I'm leaving the pan open so I can watch. The other thing I wanted to say is that there are many ways of cooking rice. I mean, this is one thing I'm showing you in an open pan. But the other way of cooking rice is, your rice cooker or using an Instapot or any of those things. So let's get started with the egg curry. Here is a pan for that. I'm going to start with my spice box. So I'm going to where's my spoon for oil. So using some spoon, a little spill. Oh, let's prepare the eggs first. So for egg curry, we need to prepare our eggs. I have a separate pan for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of oil, not a whole lot, just to take a tiny bit. And I'm going to gently fry the eggs, the 4 eggs, with some turmeric and some salt. Here is just a tad bit. You don't have to measure, just a pinch of turmeric and a pinch of salt. All right. Then I'm going to get my eggs. And then I'm just going to let it coat a bit, all 4 of them. Okay. And then I'll start the cooking process. And I just let them become golden. That's all. Just a gentle skin on them. And then they taste good. And if you can tolerate heat, if you can tolerate spice, you can put chili powder, red chili powder at this step in the oil and let it cook. Okay.
I remember prior to getting started today, we had some questions from a couple of our viewers who were asking about alternatives to eggs if you don't eat eggs. So you want to address that?
Sure, surely. So let me come to the laptop for that, and that will be easier. Okay, good. So if you don't eat eggs or don't prefer eating eggs, you can skip that entire step of cooking the eggs. You can just start with the gravy, the curry making process with the ingredients we have here. And once your curry base is done, then you can just use a can of chickpeas, drain out the water from the chickpeas, and then use that. I did that when I was actually trying out the measurements for these curries. I kind of tried with a couple of things, and Tamra told me there was a question about that. So you can use chickpeas to substitute, but you don't have to process them anything like the eggs. Like it's eggs, that's why you want them to have a little golden skin on top. So you can just drain out a can of chickpeas, drain out a can of red kidney beans, and use any of them. Okay. So I need my transferring container, and let me what's sizzling there. So let's take a look at the rice, what's getting done here. So The rice is cooking quite vigorously. I just stirred it once and made sure it's doing well. If you can see the egg, so you see they brown up pretty soon. So I'm going to stay here and cook them up. Okay. And just going to turn them. And actually, I'll switch off the stove. The heat is enough for them to cook. That's enough for the heat. And I'll get ready to bring the spices and the tomatoes and onions to the egg curry. And look for my transfer. Here you go. So this is the onion. This is the garlic that I'm going to crush now. Actually, let me do that. So this is ginger that I've washed. So you get ginger in the grocery store. Can you? Oh yeah, here you can see it. So I just took a little, like a clump of it. I peel away the skin on top. Then just took away the stump. Clean the area here. All right. Then just want to cut it. And then I'm going to crush it in my mortar and pestle, which is now next to the stove. Okay. All right. And here is the garlic. So I'm looking for about 1 tablespoon of garlic paste. So I'm just going to transfer that, all the sliced garlic, so it will crush faster. And then this is no different from any and you can use even sliced garlic. If you don't want to crush it, you can do that. And somebody was asking me about using powders. I mean, there is garlic powder that is available, but it's advisable not to use powders because in the end, they're processed, in the sense that they're dried and powdered. And then if you use them, you have to make sure that everything is in powder form, and it just has a different taste to it. So if you use fresh garlic, it just tastes much better. But if you're in pinch of time, you can always use powdered stuff. And I'm going to get some more garlic in. Here you go. Here's all the garlic that we need. Okay. Let's take everything with us. Tomatoes, the spice powders, and onions. So once again, what do we have here? We have our onions, we have crushed garlic, and I'm going to crush ginger once I get there in the mortar and pestle. That's by the stove. And here is some tomato. And this is coriander powder that is lighter brown in color. And then you have garam masala. This is like a spice blend, all the various spices that are out there. It includes bay leaves, cloves, cinnamon stick, pepper, you name it, coriander seeds, and even cumin seeds. They're all roasted and fried. And you get this in stores in various brands. So if you have a question about it, feel free to put it in the chat and I'll be able to answer more on that, where you can buy them. So let's take it with us. Okay. As always, when you start with cumin seeds. And I think in my recipe, I added some other herbs, cumin seed, bay leaf, ginger garlic paste. And yeah, okay, good. So we have the cumin seeds here. We're going to add a little bit more. And then we're going to start frying them gently. Okay, the rice is getting done. At this point, I'm going to put the lid on it and let it be on sim, on the lowest possible. Here are the cumin seeds. And then along with it, let me get ready. As the cumin seeds are turning a little golden brown, let me get ready with the ginger. I don't know if you can see that. All I'm doing is crushing ginger in the mortar and pestle. Here you go. No way to avoid sound. There's a way of doing it. Right? Here you go. This is a rich paste. Not as much as a paste, but more of mush. And sometimes in grocery stores, Indian grocery stores or in any international market, you may find the ginger garlic paste. You could use that too. You could try with that. So here we have our cumin seeds, and then we're going to add ginger. And then add the onion. Okay, that's 2 cups of onion right there. Yeah. Sorry about that. Now, as this is getting settled, let me take a look at the rice. You can see the rice here. It's done nicely. You can see the water is still there. So I'm going to let the water evaporate. And I'll show you once it's, what I mean by getting done. So the rice here now, it's pretty much like each grain. You can easily, kind of mush it up under your fingers. And that's what you wanted. So if I let it cook in the lowest heat that is possible, so that it gently cooks under the lid, then we'll get very good rice at the end. The onions are cooking here. There you go. So we're going to let the onions wet it down. They really need to turn golden brown. So when you're making these curry bases in Indian cuisine, getting your onions done all the way down. You have to really make them, totally brown into a small little mush. But they shouldn't burn. They should not stick to the pan, but they should still get cooked fully. So controlled fire will do that for us. So we'll trust that to happen. And as that is happening, we don't want to add the spice powders. Remember, we've been talking about it. So I have the spice powders, but I'm not going to add them right away. I'm going to let the onion kind of get done a little bit more. And that's when I'll think about adding them. So for now, I'm leaving it on medium heat. And I'm going to start talking about the next dish to make. And that is yogurt raita. The next dish that I'm going to make is yogurt raita. So again, when I was choosing dishes to share with you, I thought of dishes that would be easy to make, where the ingredients are easy for us to go buy from the grocery store, and at the same time had some connection with me and my family, and and also the familiar dishes. So I didn't want to choose something that perhaps has not been introduced to the palate here through restaurants. So what I chose is cucumber raita. So my mother was a great fan of making these yogurt-based dishes. So she would have the yogurt, she would have a vegetable, and she would put them both together in various forms. The easiest one is cucumber. So it's there, it's coming now, summer is coming, so you'll find fresh cucumber in the market, in the farmer's market, or now in the grocery store. So feel free to get the ones you like. So I'm going to show you what happens with 2 different cucumbers. And as I'm doing this, I'm actually kind of paying attention to what's happening to the onions too. So I can see what's going on there. So I grated them before the show started. So they sort of, gave out water, but I have not added anything to them. I've not added salt. I've not done anything. So this darker green one is from mini cucumbers that you're getting now in the market. So I took a couple of mini cucumbers. I think I took 4 of them, and I just hand grated. So I just took a handheld grater and peeled the cucumber entirely. There's no peel on them, and then I just grated finely. But I was left with a stump at the bottom, but I didn't mind adding it. So you can see it's not a very picky dish. So I just let the stump go in. And then this lighter green is the regular cucumbers that you find in the grocery store. I peeled them, and then instead of hand grating them, I put them in the food processor and shredded them. So you can see the difference in the, let me use with a spoon. Let me show you. So these are like thin strands. If you can see, this is hand grating, and this is shredding in a food processor. So these are smaller pieces. So you can do whatever works for you. It doesn't matter really. So as this is going on, let me take a quick look at the onions. As I said, you don't want them to stick to the bottom.
There was a question.
Now, for the curry base, the onions I like are red onions. And if I can't find red onions, I'll take yellow onions. I really don't like using white onions for this. You can use it for the rice, the white onions. But for the curry base, I would say go between red or yellow.
Okay, Ananya, I'm not sure if Pallavi can hear me. Pallavi, there was a question about the onion. I think you were saying that you were adding 2 cups there, but the recipe says 1 cup of onion.
Oh, so I think if I said 1 cup of onion, you can use with 1 cup. So this is going to be like 2. The most important thing is 1:1 ratio. So if you are using onions as 2 cups, then 2 cups of tomato, which is what I have. If you're using 1 cup of onion, use 1 cup of tomato. I hope I said that. I hope I get the recipe. 1 cup. Yeah. So I think I said 1:1:4. So this is 2:2. So actually what I can do in between just to make it uniform, I can reduce the amount of onion to 1 cup. So this is my 2 cup measure. And I can take away half of it and bring it down to 1 cup. So that way it stays uniform. So this is like about half of it. And so, sorry about that. So here is the onion mix with 1 cup. What happens is if you have too much onion and a disproportional amount of tomato, it will have a different color and different taste. Obviously, tomato gives it the acidic taste, so it makes it very interesting. But let's keep it simple. This is 1 cup of chopped onion. And we'll wait for a little bit longer to add the tomato, but we are ready to add the coriander powder. So this is the coriander powder we have. So here, we will add the turmeric. Add a bay leaf. So as you can see, once you add the powders, they can get stuck to the bottom. And I'm being very frugal with oil. That's just how I cook. You could increase the oil a little bit if you think this is too dry for you. I tend to be on the frugal side. I think this is, I may add just a tad bit more just to allow things to cook. Yeah. You can see it's changing once you do that. Okay. So we added the turmeric, we added the coriander powder. Let's give it 1 more minute before we add the tomatoes. And meanwhile, we can take a look at the rice. Okay, this looks good. So the water is done. There's no water in the pan anymore. It's all done. You can see it's dry. It's like separated. Each grain is separated. It's nice and fluffy. This is how you want it. Okay, this looks good. Okay, let's switch it off. Set it aside. Okay. All right. So now, see, in a minute, it's just almost getting stuck to the bottom. I want to make sure. Again, this is 2 cups tomatoes, so I'm going to be true to the recipe and only add half of it. This is 1 cup. Okay. And now I'm going to let it all sweat. You really want to mush up your tomatoes. That's how you're going to get a good fried taste. Okay. Yeah. So this will take a few minutes, and we will use that time to prepare our cucumber raita. Here you go. The eggs are done. We'll let it be here. So here I am for the cucumber raita. For this, so I was explaining a minute back about how we have 2 different kinds of cucumbers here. I'm just going to take one of them. This was just to show the difference if you use these 2 and what would happen. And you're most welcome to take either of them. You could even mix and match. They have slightly different textures and tastes, so it will all add to the variety of the dish. So I'm using simple non-fat yogurt for my raita here. And you're welcome to use whatever yogurt that you need, that you have around. The only thing is that it needs to be unsweetened. So there was a question, I think Tamra was asking how, if you can substitute the yogurt for any non-dairy versions. You could do that. You could use coconut milk-based yogurt, oat milk-based yogurt, or even soy milk-based yogurt. Any of those would work. The only thing is they should not be sweetened, because then that would we're going to add salt and pepper. So sweet, vanilla, salt, and pepper kind of don't go together. So here is some yogurt. I'm going to use 1 cup. This is my 1 cup measure. I'm just going to take this yogurt. Meanwhile, I'm paying attention to what's going on in the stove. So my mother used to say that you have to cook with your senses, almost all except tasting. So you cook with hearing how things cook. You see them, and then you can smell, and you would know, and then you can touch, but you taste only at the very end. So I've not tasted any of the things that I've been cooking so far, if you notice. So here is the yogurt. I just want to whisk it well. Yeah. So you can even use Greek yogurt. It's a little bit thicker, so you just want to think about that. And here, oops, okay. This was the regular cucumber that I mixed in. And I'm going to put some pepper. My salt is over there, so I'm going to bring my salt over here. Switch this off. Finish up salt that I've added, just a pinch. Now there are many versions of making raita. This is just one of them. You may find several different recipes if you go online, or maybe you've eaten something slightly different from this. So you can always improvise. This is one of it's conceptually, if you're thinking about it, it's mixing yogurt or a yogurt base with a vegetable and making it savory using salt, pepper, and other spices. So this is like a basic version of it. So I'm going to set it aside here. I switched off my tomatoes so they don't overcook over there. And I'm going to get some cilantro. Right. This is just regular cilantro. It's not the coriander that one would get. Coriander has a more intense aroma. This is cilantro. I'm just going to chop very finely. Okay. And just sprinkle it over the yogurt. I think you can see. Here you go. So this dish is done. We are 3 out of 5 done. So let's go back and see what's happening with our curry base. Okay. So here is the, so I'm going to sweat, let it sweat out a little bit more. I'm not going to add the water. So this is the critical step. You don't want to add water. If you add water, tomato boils, it will boil in it. So what you want it to do is actually just sweat so that you can easily just mush it out. That's what you want. You don't want to boil your tomato. You're going to add water at the very end. So what will help the sweating process is some salt. So I didn't add any salt so far. Remember, for this dish, I added a teeny bit of salt to the eggs. So that's separate. And so now this is a teaspoon, and I'm going to just add half a teaspoon. And this is something that you can adjust with, with your taste levels. So here is half a teaspoon, and that will help the sweating process. So letting this cook. This is perhaps the dish that takes the longest, but I can assure you the result will be quite good. And once you learn making a curry base, you can then, keep adding anything you want. You can even add boiled potato. You can add chickpeas, as I mentioned earlier. You can add red kidney beans. So here you can see it's, this is onion and tomato all coming together. We're going to cook it some more. All right. Okay, at this point, this is the garam masala that I was talking to you about. So I'm just adding it now, and I'm going to let it cook. So all the spices are in, the garlic, the ginger, the turmeric, the coriander powder, the garam masala, a bay leaf, some cumin seeds that we started off. And all we're doing now is letting this cook, kind of mush up. We just want the whole thing as closely done as possible. Okay. See, as you can see, we have not added any water, and you can see how it has changed, from being, pink onions to, it's now like a curry base that you're familiar seeing. So we're going to let it cook some more this way. So I'm still refraining from adding water. I'm just going to let it finish up like this, maybe for a minute. And as this is cooking, we will talk about the final dish, which is the halwa. Okay, good. So what I'm going to be showing as a dessert for this meal is a Suji Halwa, which is commonly called Suji Halwa. It has various names in India. It's called Sheera, it's called Prasadam, it has various names. But pretty much what it is you've taken wheat meal, and you roasted it, and you added it to sugar water. So that's pretty much what it is, and then you cook it. And this kind of dish is, it's called halwa, and it's kind of familiar even in Middle Eastern cuisine, and you have it in Indian cuisine. So it's very easy to make, hopefully. So we'll see. And as the onions are getting, the curry base is getting done, let me grab my ingredients. So this is cream of wheat. cream of wheat from the regular cream of wheat. I'm showing it with something that is very easily accessible. You will find it even in Indian stores. It's called Suji, Sooji, and it's the same. It does the same thing. But I got this from the regular grocery store just to show that even with the ingredients that are around, you can kind of make something interesting, something that belongs to a different culture, different country. So here is that. It is your suji. And what I did was I just took some milk, any milk from the fridge, and I just dropped a few strands of saffron. So you can find saffron in international markets, in Indian store. This is a small box. This is pure Spanish saffron, and I've had this for a very long time. So a little goes a long way. You can even find it in Trader Joe's. I've seen it in Trader Joe's too. So any of those. And here I've left them to soak for about an hour, a little more than an hour. So you can see the beautiful golden color that has come from the saffron. I've not cooked, I've not done anything. I've just let it be soaking. And if you don't want to use dairy milk, you can use any milk that you're using or even leave it in water. Okay. So for this dish, I'm going to be using ghee. Ghee is an all-time favorite in the Indian cuisine, but I'm using it just for the dessert. And I have some cashews, okay? And I have some golden raisins. So with these ingredients, we will start our dessert. But before we start cooking, let me see what's happening with the egg curry base. Yeah. I think this is now nicely done. It's all mushed up. It has a beautiful aroma. I wish you could smell it. So this is lovely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some water. But I'm going to add it gradually. I'm not going to add a whole bunch. I'm just going to add a little bit and clean up all the sides. Make sure that all the spice mixture from all over the pan is cooking in carefully. I'll take the help of another ladle and pull it all out.
There's a question on how you decide what amount of spice to put into a dish so you don't overpower the dish with any particular spice, and a tip to balance the spices and why you added the garam masala after.
Okay, that's there are a lot of questions there, and I'm going to hopefully I'll remember as an answer. Okay, so one thing about Indian cuisine is that you have many spices that are doing its job together. So sometimes if you are trying to build a recipe on your own, I say, start small or, read up what is there. So for example, the amount of cumin that I use today is kind of something I've been using. So that's like the baseline that I've learned to cook. And so the measurements I've given, I had to sort of reverse engineer. I had to see what am I taking to make a dish and kind of say, okay, that was 1 tablespoon. Maybe I should reduce it. The other thing I keep in mind is, do I want flavor of one spice or do I want a balance of spices? And or do I want heat? If I want heat, I increase the number of green chilies or I increase the amount of chili powder. And in today's recipes, I didn't do any of that. I kind of kept it at mild. How do I know how much to use? Some of it is, I would say, imbibed knowledge. But some of it is what I can handle, what my family can handle. So I have modified my recipes from what I learned from my mother and mother-in-law, or what I learned from my friends here in State College. So I kind of can change it to whatever I can handle. So feel free to reduce or increase. If you think, oh, I can handle this heat, you can add a few more slices of green chili. If you say, oh, you know what, I like many spices, you can go a little bit more on the garam masala powder. So the volume I decided was based upon, the flavors and how much I can handle, because this is going to be our dinner. So I'm going to use a lid to let it cook faster. So here you go. I have most of this. I think I'm going to use a little bit more water. So altogether, I would have used about a cup, not more than a cup. If you use more than a cup, it's going to be a very thin curry. A maximum of 1 cup for 1 cup of water for 1 cup of onions and 1 cup of tomatoes. Other thing is, when you increase spices without salt, then it doesn't go well. Or if you increase the heat without salt, the heat meaning in chili powder and the green chilies, even then it won't taste well. So you kind of have to find a balance based upon your palate, what can you handle, and what each dish sort of expect. So some vegetables like eggplant, when we cook, the number of spices are much more because it's a dish, it's a vegetable that can handle it. Whereas delicate vegetables like spinach, tomato, you can't use a whole lot of them by themselves. But this is a curry base, so it can take a lot. So
there were a couple of other questions when they were talking about the suji dish. They were asking, can they use butter instead of ghee? And are there gluten-free substitutes for the cream of wheat?
Okay, so you can use, let me answer that. So ghee is a traditional Indian way of doing. If you do with butter, that's fine. I have done with butter, but butter has a slightly different aroma. So if you cook it with ghee, it has a sort of this nutty kind of smell and flavor. But if you're cooking with butter, it's slightly different. But you can, if you have butter, you can use with butter. I don't know if there's anything right or wrong. It's all up to you. It's about how you want things to taste. You don't have to go buy a jar of ghee and not use it at all. I would say try with oil first or butter if you have butter. And then if this dish is working for you, then maybe you could go buy some ghee. Okay, let's take these to the stove. Give me 1 minute. I'm getting ready to fry the suji or the let's just put everything with me, the nuts, the golden raisins, the suji, the saffron milk, which by the way, it looks beautiful. I hope you can see it. It's a lovely color. Oh, one more thing that I forgot for this recipe, which is in my spice box, are cardamoms. So I love using cardamoms for Indian desserts. It just increases the taste by a notch. And of course, sugar. So this is the sugar we have. Okay. We're going to take it all with us to the stove. Let's check on, see if you can, before I start cooking this dish, the final dish, let's just take a look. Let's finish this. I think this is coming close. So let's not take our eyes off the curry base. So the curry has been cooking. It was, once I put the lid, it started sweating faster. So it's now, if I don't have a potato masher. If you have a potato masher, if you make mashed potatoes at home and you have that, tool to mash up, you could do that. You can give it one good mash to make sure all the tomatoes are mushed up. Some traditional recipes, like people, they cool this down. They go crush it. They apparently traditionally they would go crush this entire paste and again refry and make the curry base. I kind of skipped that step. So I think that takes a lot of oil and time. But that's a very, very traditional form. So here you go. This is pretty much done now. So all we would be doing at this time is just to transfer it to a container and then put the eggs in there. So I'm just going to leave it here. Okay, this is done. And then focus on the Suji Halwa, the dessert for today. And make sure I have a neat spoon to cook that. Okay, I'm going to switch on the stove. And I need a container for the sugar syrup. Okay, good. So there are two parts to this dish. One is preparing the suji or the farina or the cream of wheat, and the other is boiling the water. So we're going to start with the water. We have our sugar, and we're going to put that in. Yeah, put the sugar in. And then I'm going to add water. So that was 3/4 cup sugar that I added. And then I'm going to add a little over a cup of water.
So the recipe
I'm not
says
trying to
1
make-
cup of sugar. Is that okay? Or is that later?
So what was that?
The recipe said 1 cup of sugar. Is it divided? There's a 1/4 cup that goes somewhere else?
Oh, okay. Then if I said 1 cup, I didn't measure 1 cup. Sorry, I misspoke there. It is 1 cup. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I measured what I wrote, but I may have misspoken. Okay, so here is the 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water, and all we're trying to do here is just melt the sugar. We're not trying to kind of make a sugar syrup. So we're just going to keep it on low heat, and then we will come to the part where we are going to fry the nuts. Gently fry the nuts here. This is a little bit of ghee, or you can use oil. And if you don't want to use any of them too, I mean, I have dry roasted the nuts also, that also works. So we're just going to give it a minute for the ghee to melt. I guess I have to switch on the stove for that. Okay, just going to hasten the process. I'm going to take a bunch of those nuts. And there isn't a fixed quantity. I just like to use maybe at the most like 2 teaspoons or, half it, like a tablespoon of it. Okay, you start with the cashews. If you like nuts, and you can even use almonds. The 2 nuts that will go well with this dish are cashews and almonds. Okay, the sugar is getting there. It's getting done. And when you melt ghee, it has a very nice aroma. And if you were using butter here, that butter by now would have melted. So that is fine too. And actually, if you melt butter like this, you will be forming ghee, sort of. So just as the cashews begin to become golden, I will add the golden raisins that you have here. Maybe I'll just wait a second longer. So and I'm getting ready with a plate to transfer. No more salt is needed. I can put the salt away. And the sugar is melting over here. And I'll get ready with cardamom. So here, if you can see, I have a few cardamom I'm going to show you. I'm going to take 2 over here. These are just dry cardamom. You get them in a bag in Indian stores or in the international market. And sometimes you can even find cardamom powder in a grinder, like how you would find salt grinders or pepper grinders. You could buy those too. So here you can see that the cashews are slowly becoming golden brown. And I'm grinding up 2 cardamoms here, the pods. Yeah. Okay, I think I'm going to switch off the cashews at this point. Add my raisins. Okay. And once you add the raisins to this hot pan with a tiny bit of oil or ghee or butter, you'll see that they start becoming plump, So you want to switch off the heat because this heat of the pan is enough for the raisins to cook. So you don't need any more heat. You just want to do a gentle cooking. Okay. All right, this is done. So you can see the color of the nuts and the color of the raisins. And if you're not a nut eater, or somebody has allergy to nuts, you can completely skip this process. So I just transferred it to a separate plate because I'm going to use the same pan for frying my farina or suji. So you can see the water has started boiling there, okay? And the sugar has completely melted. So I reduce the fire on it. And at this point, I'm going to add kind of well ground. I like to leave the pods, the shell of the pods too. I think, that's fine. Some people remove it. I just keep it, it gives more aroma. It doesn't spoil the dish in any way. So here you go. So the reason I put this in now is that the cardamom will give all its flavor and aroma to the water, to the sugar water. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the saffron milk. So I'm just going to add it and let it sit there. Okay. And now I'll turn all my attention to roasting suji. So here I'm going to put a little bit of ghee. One doesn't have to have exact measure, but you just want to put around half a tablespoon. For the 1 cup of suji we took, half a tablespoon or 3/4 tablespoon is enough. And if you don't want to use fat, if you don't want to use any kind of fat, you can even dry roast it. I have done it all. It works. This is a very flexible recipe. You can kind of make it your own based upon what you like and what works for you. So the ghee has melted, and here I put the suji in it. And now this will take a few minutes, and you have to watch it carefully. It burns very quickly. So you can see that the butter or the ghee has mixed up with the farina and is making these little lumps. So that's great. So,
do you know of any substitute that would be gluten-free for this?
So, well, there are many desserts which don't use wheat, and they're done with rice flour and jaggery. That's a whole different class of them. So I would not be ready to recommend any flour that could be used in place of this wheat flour for this specific recipe. But there are gluten-free dessert recipes in Indian cuisine. So that's a whole different conversation. So I would not recommend a quick substitution, but there are recipes which use rice flour and jaggery. Jaggery is like a form of molasses, like the original of, the origin of sugar. So those are very common in South India. Many of the North Indian desserts have wheat. So rice-based desserts are very common. Rice flour-based desserts are very common in South of India and West of India. That's for some of the time. So you can see how the texture of the wheat has changed. So you just want to keep doing it. It turns a nice golden brown. The aromas in my kitchen are overwhelming, so I cannot smell the suji having a nice aroma, but it does. If you're doing this by itself, you will smell a very nice aroma, and then you switch it off when it's done. So I don't like the suji going all the way brown. I just like to have it like a very light brown. But some people like to roast it all the way. But I'm going to stop mine very soon. Okay. And here you go. You can see that, the saffron has nicely dissolved. It's there giving off its color. It's nice golden color. Okay. So at this point, there are two schools of thought. Some who add this hot sugary liquid into the farina, and then there are some who add the farina or the cream of wheat to the sugary mixture. So I belong to the second group. I like to add the roasted farina into the sugary water, and I do it on a very low heat, because when you add this farina mix or the cream of wheat into this water, it can form lumps. So you want to add it slowly in a gradient. You'll see that in a minute. And you want to keep stirring it constantly. So I'll make sure that the ladle doesn't have anything. Okay. All right. So I've reduced the heat to the lowest. Okay. And as I keep stirring, this vessel is hot. So I would not recommend that, but I can do it. you just keep adding the farina and keep mixing. Make sure there are no lumps. Okay. You can keep mixing. You don't want to pour it all the way in. You want to add it gradually. So that's what I mean. So you want to keep mixing it. Okay. Not as hot. This is. Okay. Here we go. This is going to cook now. I'm going to increase the heat. Maybe move it so the camera can get it. Yeah, so it starts making this. Once you increase the heat, it will start coming together. You know, all the gluten comes out, and then you'll see that it makes this bubbling noise. And that's fine. So don't be alarmed if it does that. Just play with the fire, reduce it if it's making you nervous, or just keep going with it. And make sure there are no lumps along. Because if there is a lump, it will not mix up with the sugar. And then you get these patches of bland tasting farina. You don't want that. Okay, and somewhere along, I'm going to add the nuts and the raisins, but I'm going to save some for decoration. So here are most of them. And I'm just going to save some. Okay, see how it's come together from being, here you go. See, it's become a thick paste now. All right. So we're going to switch off the stove. It's done now. You know, it's done with its cooking. That's how quickly it comes together. Okay. And now we're going to get ready with putting all our dishes together and seeing how it looks like. Okay, that's the exciting part. So let me get my counter space.
Okay, so in the end, we did end up using 1 cup of water instead of the 2 in the recipe. So it's 1 cup sugar and 1 cup water, right?
The water was slightly more than a cup.
Okay. So
Because
a little more than a
I
cup.
think I needed that. Let me see what I said. So I said 2 cups of water, and I finally used 1.5 cups of water.
Okay. Okay.
But you can start. If what happens with, I can explain it as I'm, putting things together.
Sure,
If you use
sure.
2 cups of water, you will get a slightly thinner halwa. And I used 1.5 cups as I was pouring it out. So my halwa now is a little thicker.
Okay.
So it's not going to spoil the recipe in any way. It's just going to kind of change the consistency. But the way this gluten is and the difference of 1.5 to 2 is kind of small. So, it will just bring it together. I think if you're making it on a larger scale, so if you have, several cups of suji, like 3 cups of suji, then the water matters a lot. How much water you use or you don't use matters a lot. But 1 cup of suji or 1 cup of flour that you're using, it has some wiggle room. So if you're scaling this up, I would go precisely. And I would even add a little bit more because water boils away and you lose it. So otherwise you may get a slightly dry halwa. And if you get a slightly dry looking halwa and you could add a little bit more water, like by a tablespoon, and add some oil or ghee or any butter that you're using and kind of bring it all together again. So we're getting ready to put things together. Let's see how we'll do that. Okay. So this is for the yogurt. And here you go. So I'm going to transfer all of this. Let's see if I can do it skillfully with the cilantro on the top. Or I would have to just put some more cilantro. Okay. Here is a yogurt raita. Something cooling for a hot day. You can even keep it in the refrigerator. I didn't do that now, but if you're making it, you can keep it in the refrigerator. It will be good for at least a day. Here is your cucumber raita. And here is our dish for the lentil soup, a dal, spinach dal. I needed ladle for that. Okay. All right. So it's not unusual for the lentil soup to form a skin. That's the nature of this grain. So don't be alarmed by it. So here is our lentil soup. And then comes the rice and the egg. We'll do the egg at the end because it needs some time. Let's do the rice first. Yes. Add the rice. Okay. You want the bay leaf to show. We'll try to dig it out and put it on top. Okay. So it's not unusual for the rice to kind of come together as lumps, and you can separate that out. And just gonna put some cilantro. You can either chop it or you can just put this on the side here. I'm hoping the camera can capture most of it. All right. And then comes the, let's do the egg curry now. Yeah. So I'm going to get the curry base. All right. So if you're using a substitute for the eggs, you can cook that substitute if it's beans like chickpeas or red beans, you want to cook them in the curry base for a few minutes and then take them off the stove. But if you cook boiled eggs in the curry base, they kind of get stringy. So I did not boil, I did not boil my eggs any more than what I did earlier. So I stopped cooking them once here they are. And here are a couple of options. I think here, let's move this. So here is the curry base. So let's play with this now. And at this point, you have a few choices. You can either cut your egg. This is your, golden color egg. You can either cut it horizontally and open it up and put it kind of decorate it into the curry's base, or you can just dip it all the way through. I think I'm going to try cutting it. I have my knife handy. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to go lengthwise. Okay. Hope you can see this. And I'm going to kind of let it sink in. Okay. And if you think, oh, the outside looks so pretty, I don't want to lose the outside, this is how the outside would look like, you can do that too. But I kind of thought the egg, maybe we'll do both. So here is the egg curry. The other two. And it's okay if the egg yellow falls into the curry base, that's totally fine. It is only going to enhance it. So you can do it either way. You can even put the entire egg in it. So not, if you're putting the entire egg, I would just make, I would make a slit here and that would help. So let's do it this way. Yeah. So you have both of them. Here is the egg curry. Um, and I don't know if the camera can see everything. Can it see all the dishes? Okay, so I guess we have to live with that. So let me transfer the Suji Halwa into this container and use the here. So this is what the the water does. You can see it's slightly hard. If I had gone for the 2 cups, may have become a little bit more softer, but it will taste just fine. Oh yes, the fried onions has a role. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Let me go get that. And thank you. Thank you for being good followers. So I'm going to cover this douse this with cashews and raisins. So here you go. Let me adjust that. So let me set this, and sadly we can't see all of them. Maybe you can see some of them. Okay, and here for the rice, the onions that we fried were for the rice. So we're going to mix it in. Yes, I can use this. Yeah. So you can either use it to decorate, or you can mix it in. You can do this. If you do it right after you cook, then the onions will cook further in that heat. If you don't want to do it right after and you just want it to stay as a garnish, you want to do it after the rice is cooled, like now. Okay. So let's see each of the dishes by themselves, and then I hope you'll get a good picture of that. So here is the rice. Okay, this is the rice, Jeera rice that we made. And this goes very well with spinach dal. It has spinach, tomato, and onion. It's very good for you. And then doing a musical chair of all the dishes. The rice and the egg curry also go together. So here is your egg curry. Here is your rice. Okay. All right. And here is something to cool off if all of that spice was too much. Here is cucumber raita. There are many, many variations of it, but once you learn this, you can do all of them. And something sweet to end your meal. And that is this Suji Halwa, or, cream of wheat halwa. Okay. So these are our 5 dishes. So I hope you enjoyed cooking along with me. And I have a few minutes, so I'm happy to take any questions. I see 20 comments in the chat. I just don't know what they are, and my hands are too greasy to touch the screen. So, Tamra, you can help me. You can
Everyone's saying thank you, and I also wanted to thank Ananya for her help with all of the technical aspects of this.
She's my cameraman, my older daughter. She was the one behind the scenes making sure mom doesn't goof up.
Thank you very much. I wish I was at your house to eat this. This is why I like having it all.
You know where I live now. So
this is why I like having it at my house, so that I get to eat everything when we're done.
Now this is our dinner now. So this is what we're going to eat very soon.
But I also wanted to let everyone know that in June, we already have the June World Kitchen set up. It's going to be classic Italian cooking with Patrick Tuno, and that'll be June 20th. That will be up on our website tomorrow. And Patrick will be doing a special lasagna and a tiramisu, which makes me very excited because I love tiramisu. So
that would be amazing. I'll tune in.
Great.
Thank you all. Thank you so much. And Tamra has my email. If you ever want to contact about more details about where to buy a spice or how to do something, feel free to reach out to her. That's my name, Pallavi Eswara. And I would be happy to talk you through any recipe, anything vegetarian.
Someone's commenting, they want to know how many pots, pans, bowls, spoons, jars, and measuring cups you used. It was a lot.
That's a secret I can't share. I'm usually I'm usually not this spread out. I'm usually, like, one ladle, rinse off and use for everything. But today I just wanted things to flow smoothly. So, we went to the extent of measuring water, and I think I got half a cup less in the Suji Halwa. Okay, do you eat the dessert warm or at room temperature? That's a very good question. So you can eat it warm. You can put it in the fridge, take it straight from the fridge and eat it, or you can heat it in the microwave. You can eat it at room temperature. It's up to you. The consistency changes a little bit. So if it's been sitting in the fridge, it almost becomes like a Jello treat. It's like jiggly Jello treat. And if you heat it, it kind of gets a little softer. So you can do it either way. You can even eat it with there's a trend of eating these kind of halwas with ice cream in India. So at weddings and all, you'll make a halwa from suji or from carrots, like shredded carrots, and then it's warm and gooey, and then you have a contrasting cold frozen ice cream on the side. So you could try that.
Are there any specific cookbooks you recommend for people, especially vegetarians who might want to get deeper into Indian cooking?
Oh, very good. So there was a time when I had a cookbook that was way back when cookbooks were, in the thing. So I used to like Tarla Dalal, like she has had a few cookbooks that are out there. But I like now it's all, some very good videos on YouTube, or you have some blogs that are there. There are a couple of people I can recommend who cook very good vegetarian and with meat. So there are Indian chefs who have it, and I think there is one name that's been put out called Manjula's Kitchen. So that's one place, and the one I like, his name is Sanjay Tumma, and he's from the same part of India as me, from that part, and he cooks both vegetarian and with meat, and he runs it called Va Chef. It's on YouTube, and it's both as a blog and as a video channel. So he's a trained chef, unlike me. So so and then there's another person. There's a lady. Her name is Shailaja. She used to live in the U.S. and then she went back to India. And the place she went is called Vizag, and it's my father's hometown. So when I read about her life, I was very interested in knowing who she was. And she has very authentic recipes, especially from south of India. So if you're looking for something for south of India, I would go to her. And for north of India, there is this guy called Raj, Rajiv, I think. No, Rajiv, yeah, Rajiv Barar. His last name is Brar. And he's all over YouTube. I would check him out on YouTube. So these are the places I would go if you want to really understand Indian cuisine. But there are some very good books and articles, New Yorker, Atlantic. They have some in-depth articles on Indian cooking, the origins of Indian cooking, how did curry come about? Like, so you could, there's more to Indian cooking than just making it. Even just studying helps you understand what happened from about 1600s to 1800s, or even now, around trade, around how food is commodity between nations. So colonization, because the Europeans were colonizing various parts of the world, and then they would take spices and vegetables from one part of the world to another part. So what would be amazing to learn is tomatoes are not native to India. The tomatoes came from South America with the European settlers.
Wow.
And can you imagine an Indian dish, a curry without tomatoes?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all very, very much. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And for those of you who cooked along with Pallavi, I envy you. So have a great dinner, everyone. And we'll see you next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamra. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye, everyone.